In talking about the African Space Leadership Institute, I would like to trace a bit of the history to about 2012, when the African Union Space Working Group was established by the African Union Commission. The Space Working Group had some mandate or terms of reference, which I'll mention very shortly. But it included the development of a set of instruments which were supposed to lead to the formalization of the African space program. And so the Space Working Group met for about 9 or 10 sessions between 2012 and 2016 in different parts of the continent, meeting with people, engaging with different stakeholders, academia, professionals, government functionaries, the industry, students, and different groups of people. The pictures you see here are different sessions, just a few of the sessions of the meetings of the Space Working Group. The terms of reference of the Space Working Group included to articulate a shared space vision for Africa, to determine future global trends and niche areas that Africa could focus on, since definitely we can't just engage in every aspect of space exploration, to articulate an African space policy and strategy, to identify existing space-related infrastructure and institutions. And one of the reasons for that was because we really want to replicate institutions or infrastructure that are already existing. So it was good to identify who has what and what is the current status of those infrastructure and institutions, and of course identify human resource needs. Between 2012 and 2016, the Space Working Group came up with 2 key documents, the African Space Policy and the African Space Strategy, and these documents are online. They are downloadable for us to go through them. The documents have 2 main goals. One, to create a well-coordinated and integrated African space program that is responsive to the social, economic, political, and environmental needs of the continent, as well as being globally competitive. To develop a regulatory framework that supports an African space program and that ensures that Africa is a responsible and peaceful user of outer space. In the process of the work of the Space Working Group, we identified several gaps within the continent, and we could sum this up into 3 major areas. One is a poor decision-making process, not just at organizational level, but even at the national level across the continent. Secondly, there's a weakened strategic positioning and implementation of space programs in Africa, which could be connected to the issue of poor decision-making process, poor policy-making process in the continent. Also, Africa participates poorly or contributes poorly to international forums. Our contributions are poor, our participation is ineffective. Now, if this looking down, or if you trace down these gaps, we saw that it could be kind of narrowed down or traced down to the limited capacity in space policy, strategy, and law in Africa. And so from 2016, we started toiling with the idea of setting up a think tank or an institute that will try and fill up the different gaps that had been identified in the continent. And we decided to also put the ideas down on paper by writing a paper which was published in the Space Policy Journal in 2018. But we didn't take much action on that. And then COVID came 2020. But towards the end of 2021, at about actually November, towards the end of November 2021, we started meeting together. I'll share who are the we very soon. Meeting together virtually every Saturday from November 2021 up till now, maybe except for a few Saturdays, maybe due to holidays or some other exigencies that we could not meet. Trying to fashion out and trying to flesh out the idea and trying to develop an organization that could implement the idea that we're thinking of. Eventually, we came up with the African Space Leadership Institute, It was registered in South Africa in July this year. And today, what we have is a launch or a public presentation of the Institute. These are the 4 people that have been working together, trying to, I work together in bringing this institute to life. Dr. Adigun Ade Abiodun, he was a former UN expert on space applications. He also served as the senior special advisor to President Olusegun Obasanjo on space science and technology. He also served at the time as the chairman of UN Caucus. Barrister Lulu Makapela, a space law expert from South Africa, my humble self, and Dr. Valanathan Munsame, who was the former CEO of the South African National Space Agency, and also chaired the space working group that developed the African space policy and strategy. So 4 of us were really the engineers, or the kind of the brain, or behind the ASLI, the African Space Leadership Institute. The vision for ASLI it kind of relates to the goals of the African Space Program, because our interest is Africa. We cannot disconnect ASLI from what's going on in Africa, both at the national level and at the continental level. So our vision can be drawn from the goals of the African space policy and strategy, and also is connected to the gaps which we also saw in the course of the work of the Space Working Group. So our vision is to see African space activities that meet the developmental needs and aspiration of its people and that are globally responsible and relevant. Our mission is to build capabilities and capacity and transform our knowledge about issues relating to space policy, strategy, law, governance, and leadership. The objectives: 1, to build capacity in space policy, strategy, law, governance, and leadership in Africa, to strengthen Africa's participation in international forums, and to support strong strategic positioning of Africa, of space programs in Africa. In terms of service offerings, we have a couple of things we have in mind which we intend to do, including organizing webinars, seminars, conferences, organizing training courses. We've already done some pilot classes in the past 2 years, but we've restructured the curriculum, we've reorganized the entire program, and we are looking up to people coming to learn, and of course for us to also share knowledge. We're also looking at offering advisory opinions to organizations, to companies, to different research groups, and also to do advocacy work. Other things that we plan to do include organizing dialogues, symposia, panel discussions. We also want to do research, and the outcome of our research, we want to make it public, maybe through policy briefs, through journal articles, through books, through position papers. We also plan to have resource libraries, both online and physical libraries. Of course, the Institute has to be sustainable, and so we use the business model canvas, which I believe many of us here are conversant with, to develop a business plan for the Institute. And here, we just highlighted some of the content of the business plan. In terms of customer segments, we are looking at different strata of individuals and organizations. So looking at space agencies, space professionals, students in higher institutions, but also in lower levels like secondary and primary schools. We also look at reaching out to research and academic institutions, then the industry, companies, aspiring, emerging, and established entrepreneurs, and of course, national governments. I've already mentioned some of the activities we plan to organize, but just also include that we want to develop and deliver content. Of course, we're going to also use different social media to deliver content. We also will plan to develop toolboxes which could be useful both at the national level and organizational level, for policy development, for law, and for strategy development. We plan to develop research and publication on key topics, develop training materials, offer advisory opinions, organize events, both online and physical, and of course, engage in advocacy activities. For us who are already involved in the activities of the ASLI, we come with wide knowledge and experience within this field. And we also have networks, large networks, both as individuals and as a group, with people both within Africa and outside Africa. We've published in books, in journals, and also even in traditional media. We've also published in such activities, in such platforms, I mean to say. And then we've been engaged in several other NGOs, like the International Institute for Space Law, the Space Generation Advisory Council, the International Astronautical Federation, the African Space Leadership Congress, and of course the UN CUPUS. We've been involved in space programs in Africa, both within our countries and at the continental level. We've also, indeed, all of us have lectured in higher institutions at one point or the other. So we bring this knowledge and experience into the Institute, and with other people who have shown interest, and many of us here who would be interested in working alongside the Institute, we are really looking forward to a wide pool from which people can draw from. Key partners include the African Union Commission, the African Development Bank, the UNECA, national space agencies, national governments, regional economic communities, space-related institutions, industry forums, development banks, space professionals, students. These are both our clients, but they're also our partners. And we are looking at not only working with partners within Africa, but also outside Africa, including universities, international organizations, professional organizations, and similar think tanks around the world, like the European Space Policy Institute, the US Space Policy Institute, the Secure World Foundation. Thank you.